This is Music NFT News. I'm your host, Marc Moglen. This is our side B, in which we're featuring Kevin Brown of Fancircles. And as we do on our side B, we focus more on the creative side of music NFT releases. So, Kevin, while you're not a practicing musician, you've worked with many musicians in their live career, live performance and touring businesses, and now you're onboarding them into this Web3 space via activating their fans. So what do you see as the creative side of all of this, and how is it changing with these new technologies?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't play music. My friends are mostly professional musicians, so it's embarrassing for me to play the piano here, because they're just so much better than me. And my partner, she's a drummer in a two-piece rock band. So yeah, it's I've also managed bands, so taken actually a tribute band, which doesn't sound very impressive at the beginning, but a Pink Floyd tribute band called the Australian Pink Floyd, from small bars to 2 nights at Red Rocks, and 120, 130 shows a year, by building a scene around it, but also collecting data as well, which is something that, you know, being thrown into the music industry from a very data-driven industry prior to that, you know, that was my main mission. You know, you've got to own the data in order to grow the fan base to get to the stage of filling 20,000 capacity venues. So despite it being a tribute band, the rules still apply to any kind of band. And I managed some of the UK based bands too, and did the didn't get to that level, but certainly increased their exposure. So I think that's kind of my experience in music, and I've always been involved in fandom and fan clubs, and understand what fans really want through experience, through a lot of things I've done in my career. So fandom is really, really important. Yeah,
I think it's an underlooked aspect. You know, as musicians approach this space, they think they're going to do an NFT drop on a marketplace like OpenSea or Rarible, and then it falls flat. And even in the case where someone has a lot of exposure and has really gotten out there, I mean, have you seen cases where where they underestimate or overestimate how many out there are actual fans and actually want to, you know, get involved?
Again, I think the industry's just got so skewed by the wrong numbers. They're measuring it by social media and streams, and again, that does not show fandom. So, you know, I think if you start measuring by that and then launch a collection and think it's going to sell out, then
see, that's such an interesting point, because it's really not that intuitive. Social media does not imply fandom, right? No. And so we have to look at new ways of measuring that, new ways of identifying and growing that. Would you say that Fancircles helps those who already have a lot of fans, or does it help them grow their fan base, or where is it positioned in that cycle? Okay.
Yeah, it does both, but it doesn't crack that first sort of 1,000 fans, or the first few hundred fans, let's call it, not the first 1,000 fans. I think what's fascinating about it is that we're kind of in the West, where we've got this kind of view that you need to just go on streaming, build your social following. Every time there's been any suggestion by the tech industry in music that music could be windowed, for example, and put within maybe on an album first and then later released on Spotify, or in a digital form that's sold prior to it being put onto Spotify, has always been knocked back by the industry, because nobody really wants that, because there's more than one industry within music. And I think the opposing view from that, and it's so obvious, I think, when I say this, is the BTS example. So BTS, I mean, to me, I didn't understand how that
the K-pop group
even meant, you know. And it's quite unusual, really, you know. It's a Korean band, and and suddenly they're playing stadiums, doing collaborations with Coldplay and various other artists, and how does that happen? And you only have to look at the Korean and the Japanese way of marketing bands to find the answer. And the answer is really simple, really, really simple. And this is not only BTS, it's also bands like Blackpink, X-Japan, at the other end of the spectrum.
So was that BTS getting into the United States, or was that Coldplay getting into South Korea?
I think BTS getting into the US and the rest of the world is by the fact that they know how to build fandom, and they do that with their own platform and fan club within Korea. And I think that is, and Japan, if you look at Sony Music Japan, you'll see that it looks very much like a Beatles style font, and they talk about fan clubs on there. They build fandom, and they immobilize their fans within their fan club to go out onto social media and go and talk about BTS. So when you see BTS trending on, say, Twitter, it's because they've told people to go out there and go and get the word out that they've got a new song out, and make sure you hashtag BTS in there, and that's your BTS army, and it will trend more often than what you think, because they immobilize their true fandom to go out there and do the marketing for them. And that's what Fancircles can do, and that's what you do in Japan and Korea, and that really works. But it's ignored because it's not convenient for Spotify and streaming services to believe that. Yeah, when you look at movies, a great example being Disney Plus, who charge, I think, $7.99, so in the UK, £7.99. They realised that windowing movies makes sense. In fact, last year I think they windowed a movie from Marvel.
Windowing, what does that refer to exactly?
So windowing meaning don't release it immediately to include in the $7.99 Disney price. Black Widow. So Black Widow, Marvel's movie, was actually on Disney Plus, but not part of the subscription. You had to pay another. I don't know what it was in
you
dollars.
Have to pay more.
I imagine it was like $25 extra to be able to watch that. And imagine if we did that on Spotify, if we did that on Apple Music. That would mean that a new artist could release an album and initially charge money for it, which fans would pay, because this word pay isn't the correct word to use, support, and then open it up to everybody afterwards. So you're getting the best of both. You're getting the initial people that want to buy the album, and they will buy the album to support the artist, and then you open it up so you've got the reach available of Spotify. But strangely, music doesn't want to do that. Movies do want to do that. So
well, what we're seeing are emerging platforms that are exploring ways to monetize works in new ways via NFT.
Sadly, I don't think we are seeing that. I think we're seeing a very stubborn music industry that wants to stream everything for what is it, $9.99 a month, let's say. And I think there's no reason to change that, because over 50% of the music that's played on these platforms is owned by Sony Music, Universal and Warner. And if you've got a hard drive of 45 years of back catalogue, it's not a bad idea just to upload it to Spotify and earn money from it by doing nothing. So it serves their purpose really, really well, but it doesn't necessarily serve the new artist at all. So right. I think those three labels, there's obviously exceptions to the rule, but they're not very much interested in breaking new artists to a level that makes sense, because the cost far outweighs the benefits of just holding on to 45 years of catalogue and earning from that. I think it's pretty awful really to think that there's only 7,500 artists on Spotify that earn more than $100,000 a year. You can find that information out by just having a little Google. There was a British inquiry into streaming recently, and the results of that are all available. I can probably send you a link to put under the video afterwards. to show you that those facts that came out from the UK inquiry into streaming. Interestingly, again, only 350 artists on Spotify and more than $100,000 per year and are fully independent, which means out of 10 million plays, an artist that's fully independent would get about $17,000 per 10 million plays. But if you was with a label, so the majority of all those people, the rest of those 7,500 will get around about $2,000 to $3,000 per 10 million plays.
Wow. Only 350 artists.
There's only 350 artists.
Yeah, it's just stunning statistics. And so clearly there's this huge market opportunity, if you will, coming from the supply side, right? Which is artists who want to get out there. What is the sweet spot for Fancircles in terms of, are you talking to artists that have established their, 1,000, true fans already, or is it I know you work with huge, maybe you could speak to some of the artists that you're working with, because they're folks that have more than 1,000 true fans, as it turns out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously this is, we've got a lot of European acts, UK acts, and also US acts. So we work with people from Boy George to a guy out of the US called Marc to Paloma Faith in the UK. All of these are arena filling artists, or at least 2 of those are, plus another 50 as well. So we have a lot of different artists that can play different capacity venues, but normally really you've got to be playing theaters and upwards in order for this to work, because it's simple as this. Look, when you've got a community of people, you need enough people in that community to keep the community alive. It's like entering a bar and there's nobody there, you leave immediately. So you need enough people to be in that bar in order to create the community for people to stay. So, and I think that's the same goes for what we do. So I think you already need a few thousand people to be using your platform. So
if you're filling up venues and you're looking for ways to monetize, contact Fancircles and see if there's a potential way to connect with fans on a deeper level. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's very fair. That's, I'd love to, I'm really passionate about music, and I really, really want to try and help individual artists to get from that sort of low level to the next level up, because that first step is so difficult. I wish I'd got the answer for the first, 200, 300, 400 fans, and I think that's the most difficult one. But I can't, all we can do is take a fan base that already exists, and bring the community closer together, and enable them to mobilize these people as marketeers to go out there on social platforms and speak about their favorite band. And I think that's the power of this.
So what do you say when an artist approaches you, says, great, I want to use Fancircles, I want to engage my fans in new and compelling ways. Hey, Kevin, I also want to launch an NFT project, and I really don't know which direction to go in this. What do you advise them at that stage, or what do you say to them?
No, I think it's a really good question. I think my first question is always, what's your merch sales like? Do you sell merchandise? How many do you sell? What size venues do you do is a secondary question. But what percentage of the audience buy your merch? And I think, if you've got a strong fan base, and you probably, even if you're playing venues of sort of 300 to 700 capacity, if 2 to 3% of people buy merchandise, then you've got fandom. And I think that's probably where that's where we come in, I think, at that level. So I'm always looking for I don't care about how many people are following on Instagram. I've had artists come to us with huge followings on Instagram, and they've launched their app and nobody's got onto it. But equally, I've had plenty of artists that have true fandom with very small followings.
How do you specifically address the NFT question when let's say they don't know a lot about the NFT space, but they've heard some exciting things about it? What would you say to them? Yeah.
I think the same people that buy, right, okay. So obviously what you've got here is also an industry with NFTs that isn't for everybody. So there's not really much reason to launch an NFT of a collection of, say, 1,000, just because you think you've got 1,000 fans, because maybe only 2%, 3% of those even know what MetaMask is and care about NFTs. So you've got that hurdle as well to get over. So I think, you've got to be relatively big to launch a collection of NFTs, but I think one-off items of NFTs can possibly work. I'm not a great believer in thinking that including the rights or partially the rights to the song within the NFT is something worth doing. I know that there's music platforms out there that are offering that. Who knows? I mean, at the moment, those percentages will be meaningless. In the UK, we use PRS. Over there, in the US, you have ASCAP as collections agencies. I own a few songs
BMI
that I
as
didn't
well.
like.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I own a few songs, and if I get $20 or $30 a year from it, I'm surprised.
I'm sure you get yourself a couple beers. You're like, yeah, I'm a musician now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when you're trying to divide that up into 1,000, then what's the point? That's the reality of it. So I think people don't want. I think people want a club. They want to be part of something. They want to feel part of a community. And I think, as we're all so fragmented now, you want to be part of something that's meaningful for you, whether you're a flat earther or you're a Avril Lavigne fan. You want to be part of that circle of fans, and I think that's the most important thing. And again, the same goes for NFT collections, just pure NFT plays. You want to be part of something. You could say the same as Bored Ape Yacht Club. You're in an exclusive club, and that's what people feel special in. And I think that's what you've got to try and build around music. This club, and it's really important. And
maybe we need to bring it back. Maybe it's something that kind of got fizzled out in this streaming era.
Well, it got fizzled out, I think, when the labels took over the fan clubs, when websites appeared, because labels thought they could run fan clubs better than fan clubs could run them. So they built websites, took the power away from the artist, and messed it all up, to be honest. I don't think there was any good websites that succeeded at anything at that particular point for artists. I remember, again, it's a long time ago now, but we're talking 1999, 2000. That's when the labels took control of many fan clubs, and fan clubs just died a death. But the truth is, fan clubs are essential. They're just not very cool. I think when you add the NFTs into the equation, it becomes cool again. So, for me, I think and the music industry does thrive on what's cool, not necessarily what makes money. So I think hopefully, I think within music, NFTs have made fan clubs cool again. And that in turn will help artists understand that it's not about these vanity metrics of how many followers you've got, but how many actual fans you've got, because that's all that really counts.
This concludes our side B of music NFT news. I want to thank our guest, the founder of Fancircles, Kevin Brown. I'm your host, Marc Moglen. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.